Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Fun Fans Podcast. I'm your host, James Diller. With me, as always, my co-host, Bailey Jackson. How you doing, Bailey?
I'm good. Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody.
Happy Labor Day weekend. It is definitely a good weekend, even though, and we're going to talk about some even though. We have a great show coming up. We're going to talk about week 1 of college football, of course. We are not taking calls, okay? Text only, no calls tonight. We have video and audio that you will only hear here on the Fun Fans Podcast. We're going to discuss our favorite spinoff shows. But most importantly, you're going to hear some real analysis and not just whining and complaining from a couple of former coaches that are Clemson fans. But first, the Fun Fans are a proud part of the Fanboys Fangirls Sports Podcasting Network. If you're a true sports fan, the Fanboys Fangirls is perfect for you. Find various nation podcasts and other sports media at thefanboys.com and all forms of social media. The Fun Fans Podcast is the official podcast for Clemson fans.
And we'd also like to thank Ruben's Food, Sports Spirits, and Catering, the best wings around, with 2 locations in the upstate, 1083 Batesville Road in Greer and 11028 Anderson Road in Piedmont. Find them at rubensc.com. Rubens is simply a great place to eat for all sports fans. And if your back's hurting,
it was really good Saturday night. Oh, yeah, if your back's hurting. Fun Fans also brought to you by Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare Services. At Ivy O'Sullivan, they are more than just chiropractors. Since 1977, this family-owned business located in downtown Spartanburg has been helping people with techniques other than the typical twisting and popping that can sometimes make people nervous about trying a chiropractor. I've been a patient my entire life, and I take my own children there as well. If you have an ache or a pain, give Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare a try. And if you mention the Fun Fans Podcast, they will donate 100% of your initial evaluation cost to their charity of the month. So call them at 864-583-3967. That's 864-583-3967, or find them at ivyO'Sullivan.com to feel better and function at your best. Okay, so obviously we're going to talk about college football. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Clemson game. And if we go in chronological order, something very important happened before the Clemson game. I mean, I saw this on social media, and I know, Bailey, I know your daughter's not a cheerleader anymore, and I really do appreciate the love from the cheerleading squad, but I mean, do you have any idea where this comes from?
I have no idea.
If you're listening.
But evidently they know.
So, shout out to the cheerleading squad for giving a shout out to somebody named James. Whether it was me or not, it's greatly appreciated by the host here on the Fun Fans Podcast. So that was awesome. All right. So the game kicked off. Clemson had the jitters a little bit. Both teams struggled to move the ball, had to figure each other out. And Georgia came out with some second half adjustments that basically we didn't have an answer for. There you go. Right. They're the number 1 team in the country. We're ranked about 14, 15, 16, probably played like about the 14, 15, 16 team in the country against number 1, and came out with an L.
Well, I mean, even Joey Galloway said that's not the only team that Georgia's going to make look like that.
Correct.
All right, so going into this game, realistically, what was your expectation? Okay, I'll tell you what mine was. If we can just hang around and to give ourselves a chance. And honestly, at halftime, I felt pretty good.
Yes.
You're playing a team that is 42-2 over the last 3 years, has won 2 national championships, and they were mad because they were supposed to be in the playoffs last year and didn't get in, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's be realistic, Clemson Tiger fans. Yes, the offense had some issues. However, the defense caused those issues in a lot of situations. Now, the penalties and things like that, not getting lined up right, those are all things that can be fixed. All right. And, I mean, it is what it is. Georgia's 1-0, Clemson's 0-1.
Yep. And we're still haven't played a game in the conference. So the thing is, and completely honest, like you say, I wanted to be within 1 score going into the 4th quarter. We missed that by, I can't remember exactly, but we missed that by 1 score or about minutes or whatever you want to, 4 or 5 game minutes. So that was fairly close. Definitely would have been nice if the offense, and you don't want to say they moved the ball but just couldn't score. They kind of moved the ball some. So and that wasn't great. We kept testing places that, they finally tested a place they found, on the outside, and the short passes up, kind of like wheel route type deals that that worked out for them. And we kept testing places that seemed to never work out. But like you say, we were going up against not just the number one team in the country, but what it was supposedly going into the preseason, the top defensive front in the country. And we had 0 sacks. We had 0 fumbles. We pushed them. I think our offensive line did extremely. If that's the best defensive front they'll see, we'll run for 200, 300 something yards against probably almost everybody else on our schedule. There are tons of positive. Cade, he made a really bad throw on the first throw of the game that, a bad on something that should have been easy. And he made that goofy mistake once that he's done he used to do a lot, but other than that, fairly sound. He threw an interception that turned into a highlight reel. So our only
unbelievable play
was a highlight reel. And guess what, Bailey?
What?
Our field goal percentage is 100%.
That's right.
So if we go back to the last season and what all of our problems were, those are fixed, and they're fixed against Georgia. So I don't like, once again, being completely honest, it did get to the point where it was a little bit frustrating. And by the end, when you 30 something to 3 or whatever the final was, somewhat of an embarrassment there and all. But if you look at the full picture and you pay attention to everything that happened to get there, you don't really worry about the rest of the season. So,
I truly believe, after seeing everybody play, or seeing scores and taking a full account of who's on Clemson's schedule the rest of the way, there is a legitimate opportunity to win the remainder of the games.
Without a doubt.
That's hard to do. But it can be done. I mean,
Florida State on the road is still a tough test.
That's a toughie. And then you got, a couple more mixed in at Virginia Tech, but who knows? I mean, Virginia Tech got beat by Vanderbilt. So we just don't know.
And,
everybody, one game at a time.
The first game, and Dabo pointed this out as well, the first game's always a quirky game. So, honestly, it took Georgia's offense a half to get going. A lot of times, the first game you haven't worked, Dabo talks all the time about how there are no scrimmages. Where a lot of coaches, they talk about, college football has no scrimmages. And sometimes there's not a lot of moving the ball up and down the field. It takes a lot of practice and timing going against live defenses to work that out. Notre Dame, Texas A&M didn't score a touchdown. Neither one of those teams, they're both going up against good defenses, close game. Neither one of those teams put it in the end zone until very, very, very late. I think it was late third quarter before the first touchdown of that game was scored. So, it's college football, and let's just, if you're really looking at the big picture, and what's funny is the people that complain so much, they're I don't want to say, so who knows who's doing what little thing, but if there's any year where that loss is so irrelevant,
it's completely irrelevant.
It's the most irrelevant loss that Clemson has ever had.
It's not a conference game.
Nope.
12 teams going to get in the playoffs. You still got the ACC in front of you. And, you could have a scrimmage. You could be Ole Miss. You could have a scrimmage with Furman and score 76 points to 0.
Yeah.
All right. And pay Furman a couple $100,000. Or you can be put in the national spotlight. And that's what really makes people upset, I think, more than anything, is that there we are, 12 o'clock. The only other game on is West Virginia and Penn State. And you're sitting there, and your team's playing really good on defense. Offense is playing a great defense. And you're right there at halftime. It's a one-possession game at halftime.
Yep.
And then everybody gets mad that, people that post, let's get rid of the offense coordinator. I'm tired of seeing Cade Klubnik. You're not really helping.
They're not helping at all.
And honestly, your opinion is not accurate. So that's your opinion of it.
Well, and I'm going to say it here, and maybe we're actually getting some listeners if it makes it out there. I could care less. For some reason, what DeAndre Hopkins said got to be popular. I could care less what DeAndre Hopkins says.
Right.
We got coaches over there getting paid to coach the team. We got players over there that are, they're getting paid to play. So they're going to get it done. They are as frustrated about that loss as anybody else, and they're the ones that have to wake up and put the gear back on again and go out there and get better. And once again, the most irrelevant loss ever. You know what we lost? You know what the biggest thing we probably lost was one of the top 2 seeds in the playoffs. So far, that's pretty much what we've lost.
Now, here's the most important stat. And as educators, I feel like I need to bring this up.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson's football graduation rate is 99%. Georgia's is 41%. Their radio announcer, longtime Don Munson, I think is his name, said it's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. So let's look big picture here, people. Big picture.
Yeah,
one game is just a battle. It's not the war.
Yeah, and another. Honestly, they're only going to get so much better. And if let's say we meet them again, or we meet a team in the playoffs, or if we do finish out like we're saying, run through the ACC, which is fine, and end up in the playoffs against some SEC powerhouse or whatever, we will have gotten tremendously better, and a team like that probably will not have gotten any better. So
they're good.
They're very
good now.
Yeah, they're very good now. And I'm, and I kind of, this is not, there's no good way to say this without it sounding bad, but like Bailey was saying, personally, if what it's going to take in the new age of college football is to run a program like Georgia runs their program, I'm okay not doing that. I'm okay not doing that. I'd rather kids, to me, if you're going to put a school's name to your team, there should be some school in there. Right. I could go off on a tangent. I love the story about the tight end from Miami that got a 9th year.
Right.
But what does that say about the educational process? And is he a doctor? There are people that go to college for 9 years. They're called doctors.
Right.
So that's a whole nother story. But I'd rather not be a part of what college football might be turning into, honestly, if that's what it's going to be. However, we don't normally have clips, so we do have a clip. Our defense did get a little tired and wore out by the end of the game, so we actually we do have one clip from the game Saturdays.
Unsportsmanlike conduct fouls for each of those players. It is 2nd down. 1st down.
Well, if Barnett had just fallen down, he may have been all right, but that was a little acting there.
A little.
Yeah.
Good acting.
All right, some other big games. Miami, let's talk about Miami and Florida just real quick.
Oh, Miami looked really good.
They did.
But do we know how good Florida is? Do we know how good Florida is?
We don't.
That right now, you don't know.
You don't know. They're not as good as Miami, though.
Not yesterday, they weren't.
That's for sure. Hey, and the thing is, they're not on our schedule.
Right.
Honestly, after 2 weeks of football, the best 2 ACC teams as far as how teams have looked, Georgia Tech and Miami, neither one of them are on our schedule.
Right.
So it's all good. All right. We talked a little bit about Notre Dame over Texas A&M, but
yeah, that one surprised me a little bit, but Notre Dame's Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think those are 2 good teams.
And they have
once again
an easy road to the college football playoff.
Yeah, Notre Dame probably does too. All right, I'm bringing up Michigan. Yeah, I'm bringing up Michigan over Fresno State. Once again, to compare, first game, Michigan, defending national champions, blah, blah, blah. They were up 13-3 at the end of the 3rd quarter against Fresno State. Are they trying to fire their coach and stuff yet? Maybe they are.
Well, they were picked. Fresno State was preseason number 3 in the Mountain West.
Okay, that's better. Okay, where was Western Carolina picked in their conference? That Thursday night game.
In the Southern Conference? I think they had one of the best defenses in the Southern Conference last year. But for NC State at home to struggle with Western Carolina, Are we firing people at NC State now?
I mean,
Like, this is what irritates me. If you have a bad game or this or that, it's time to fire everybody. I don't work for these people.
yeah. That
99% graduation rate.
They were the Wolfpack were down 4 points
Right
at the end of it, and I know it's a 4-quarter game, and so they eventually wore them down, and I think they beat them by double digits. But come on, Thursday night at home against
I
Western
would have
Carolina.
loved to have seen Dave Doran.
That would have been
lost that game.
Yeah, that would have been funny. Speaking of losing, a lot of the talking heads, and like Bailey says, we don't know how good teams are. Most teams have only played one game. We still don't know how good teams are. You got to get 3, 4, 5 games in.
Right.
A lot of talking heads said Virginia Tech would have a chance at making some noise in the ACC, and doggone if they don't lose to Vandy in overtime. Now, how good is Vandy? Maybe
But
Vandy
they still can win the ACC because that's a non-conference game.
That's right. They can still win the ACC. And other game of interest, of course, our friends down in Columbia. Yeah, they're talking about firing old Beamer. Did not look all that great against ODU.
Did you see the play where Sellers actually tackled the running back accidentally?
No.
He was trying to get in front of him to block it. He knocked him down, and it was a tweet that said, "When my son asked me what it's like to be a Gamecock fan."
So
Old Dominion was picked 13th out of 14 teams in the Sun Belt preseason poll.
I will say this. They had a long lightning delay, and sometimes that just makes things weird. So maybe we'll cut them some slack and see. They go to Kentucky Saturday.
Ain't a whole lot of W's on their schedule.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. You know they're probably going to need up there in Kentucky.
They're definitely going to need some W.
They're going to need some energy. Go to w.gg. Enter promo code FUNFANS. Get 10% off of your Jitterless energy drink. Now, so there's a couple of new rules in college football this year. And one of the new, I don't know if it's a rule, but it's something that's allowed, not against the rules or whatever, that some coach, I guess you get to pick whatever coach, is probably just one coach can communicate with one player, I'm assuming. So it's the quarterback.
Yeah.
In helmet up until 15. Now, I don't know how they monitor all that, not getting into it, but, here at the Fun Fans podcast, we have a way of acquiring some things sometimes. So we happen to have a little cut, a little snippet from DJ Uiagalelei's helmet when they were playing against Georgia Tech over there in Ireland. So you got to listen carefully now. It was in a foreign country, so let's listen up.
Back to the lot with you, Nessie.
What was that?
Did you?
I think somebody scrambled it.
Need me to play it? Okay.
Back to the lot with you, Nessie.
I don't know if that's an Irish accent or not.
I mean, it had to be. That's where they were. So,
okay.
And we also, like Bailey was, we're not getting into Georgia and how many arrests and stuff they have and whatever. We just know the graduation rate's not good. But we, since we played them, we have acquired a little bit of audio from their helmet microphone as well. So you got to listen closely to this one.
You pull over. Pull over to the side. Pull over. Pull over now. Move your vehicle over. Move it over. You pull over.
Pull over. Pull your vehicle over now. So, I mean, it's just what's going on in college football nowadays. But speaking of what's going on, Bailey, what about an O's update?
Half game back from the evil empire, the Yankees, but start a 4-game series against the Chicago White Sox, who are on pace to set a major league record for most losses in a season. Wow. They have 107 losses, and we still have almost a full month to go. So they won 2 out of 3 in Colorado this weekend and head home. They're on the way home right now.
Very good. Very good. We'll go O's. All right. So I was at Reuben Saturday night. Didn't make it there for the Clemson game part, but they were giving away stuff. They had some Gamecock stuff out by the time I got there. So hopefully that went well, and they're going to continue to open and do special things at the times that'll be during the games, Clemson, Carolina, whatever. So they're going to they're catering to the college football fan, both at the Powdersville, and the Parkway location in Greer. So keep Reuben's in mind. I think that is our tailgate menu. I've made that executive decision. First game, we're going to go by and we're going to grab food and we're going to take it to the tailgate with us.
Okay.
RubensC.com for the information. Find their social media, follow our social media to keep up with the times based on the kickoff times for Clemson, Carolina stuff. So speaking of other huge announcements, thanks to our partners at WSBN TV, we're bringing some sports fans across the upstate a new show. It started last Wednesday. Thought it was very, very good. Southeast High School Highlights. And we partnered with 4 schools, Spartanburg, Clover, Greer Middle College, and Landrum. And we're wanting to give coverage and attention for athletes outside of football because they do not normally, get that media spotlight. So went very well. So if you know folks from those schools, share that information with them. And tell the folks to follow the Fun Fans social media, WSBN, for all that info. Put my logo up there real quick so everybody can see it one time. And, that's Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And
that leads us right into our next segment.
Yeah.
So that is a spinoff of this show. So I was
We
sitting
have a
there thinking, what are the best spinoff shows of all time? And I found a bunch of information and things like that. And of course, one of them that I had on my list, you added before I completed the list. But just to go through them, like this site that I used, or I was doing some research, I don't think a spinoff of NCIS New York is NCIS Chicago. Okay.
That's
you don't
not consider it a spinoff?
It's just the same show with a different city.
In a different
All
city.
right. So, and these go back to our childhood for the most part.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 5, I'm going with Mork and Mindy. Okay. Those of you
Classic.
who don't know, Mork and Mindy spun off of Happy Days.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure did.
My favorite Orkin was Mork on Happy Days, and then they weren't going to make a show, and then all of a sudden Robin Williams became this superstar, and they ran it for 4 seasons, and so it was a spinoff of Happy Days. Now, another spinoff of Happy Days, James, is Laverne and Shirley.
Yep, sure was.
And Laverne and Shirley worked in Milwaukee in the Schlott's. They put the caps on beer. That's all they did all day. Yeah. And it was considered one of the best spinoffs of all time. And it ran for 8 seasons from 1976 to 1983. And you can find every Laverne and Shirley on some channel on the Roku TV app because they have just channels that run the same show over and over and over.
On YouTube.
The next one is The Facts of Life. You take the good, you take the bad. All right. The Facts of Life was a spinoff, and I didn't really realize this. It was a spinoff from Different Strokes.
Oh.
Yeah, what you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about?
Gary
Yeah.
Coleman. Edna was the housekeeper in Different Strokes, and she left that job to go run work as an all-girls boarding school as like the house mom. Okay.
See, you learned something on this show.
Yeah, and that actually ran for like almost 10 seasons.
Oh, that was a hit.
Oh, wait, it was on upstairs the other day. My favorite character, Tootie.
Yeah.
I tried to name every dog we get Tootie, and I get vetoed. All right, next up is the Jeffersons. All right, the Jeffersons was a spinoff of All in the Family.
Family, yep.
Because George used to be neighbors with Archie Bunker, and then his dry cleaning business took off, and he moved it on up to the east side.
To the east side.
And they
To a deluxe apartment.
actually addressed some pretty serious social questions of the time. You know, there was pushing the edge of what was on TV back then. You know, as far as
Definitely.
and so it was. If you go back and look at those things now, you see, well, no wonder it was so successful. It was funny, and it had a little bit of depth to it, and all that good stuff. And finally, one of my, I don't love this show, but I liked Cheers, and I really thought Frasier was a pretty funny show.
Yeah.
Okay. So Frasier spun off from Cheers, obviously. What's his name? Frasier Crane used to sit. His wife Lilith was at Cheers, and they would sit at the end of the bar. Cliff and Norm would be on the other side. And then it spun off, and he moved to Seattle, and he's got his radio show. So it was a spinoff of Cheers, and it was the best comedy 5 years straight.
It was good.
Yes, only broken by Modern Family recently. So that is your spinoff history.
All right.
And those are all the little sitcoms, but I'm not doing Game of Thrones has a spinoff, House of Dragons.
Right. And so isn't that a prequel?
Yeah. So and then, Gomer Pyle USMC was a spinoff of Andy Griffith.
Yes.
There's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch. That's a good one. That's a very good one. And our Southeast High School Highlights
is a spinoff of this show.
And it's a good one. So join us on Wednesday nights, and we'll give those young folks some recognition. All right. Very good. So that was awesome. Thank you, Bailey, Bailey does a great job with the research. We appreciate that.
Yes. I like, this is a variety show of sorts.
Definitely. All right, and we definitely hope you enjoyed the show. Home game this coming Saturday. First tailgate. You're going to enjoy this season as a Tiger fan, folks. Just stop with all the whining and complaining.
Hang in there, people.
It's going to be good. And don't forget about the Southeast High School Highlights every Wednesday. Thanks again for checking us out each and every Sunday. Don't forget to click subscribe on the Fun Fan Podcast YouTube channel, as well as your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media and share. Please reach out to become a sponsor. On behalf of the Fun Fans Podcast, Jay Thriller Entertainment, the Fanboys Fangirls Podcast Network, and Bailey Jackson.
You must believe to achieve, Tiger fans. We're going to run the table. It starts with App State this Saturday, 8 p.m.